Grace, this is Chris.
Hi.
Chris,
Grace.
this is Grace.
Hi.
I'm so happy and relieved to say it is nice to meet you, and thank God you look like your mother and not your father.
We all think the same thing. Yes, sir.
So, we're rolling. We're recording, and those guys can jump on when they jump on. Because every podcast that we do kind of starts like this with just a little bit of banter before we get into stuff.
There we go.
I'll start with the introductions for the few people that may not know who you are. Bob Bowery, Michigan, U.S. Lacrosse Michigan Hall of Fame class of 2019. And been doing games since lacrosse
1986.
86. So
Maybe 85. Maybe for sure 86.
okay. You and I go way back. You and Colin go way back. And I'm gonna text those guys and tell them we're live. Where are you? So we started this, and you told me specifically you have not watched any of these. So I want to give you kind of what.
Not one.
Colin and I have been saying we should do something like this for years, and we just have never gotten around to doing it. And now we have no excuse. We have.
That's it.
We have no practices. We have nothing. So let's do it. So we just kind of said with his role as a Division I coach in Michigan, with my role as the president of the Michigan chapter, with our buddy John Losey, who you'll meet in a second, that's doing a lot of broadcasting stuff. We just need to start talking to people. And it could be U.S. Lacrosse members, non-U.S. Lacrosse members. This is the U.S. Lacrosse Michigan podcast, but we just want to do it to have the community of lacrosse in Michigan get to know each other a little bit better. So you are the first pure official that we had Steve Hubble on, but mostly we've been talking to college coaches, high school coaches, retired high school coaches, legendary high school coaches, boys, girls, youth, everything else. John Losey, Bob Bowery, John Losey.
Hey, man.
I'm trying to figure out if you two have ever met or been in the same room. I'm sure
we've met. If you're a Rice dad involved in the Rice stuff, we've certainly been on the field together.
I've scheduled all the games for the program for the last, I think, 5 years, 6 years now. Plus, I've been doing the broadcasting in the booth for all the games for the last 4 or 5 years as well.
So you're the one bitching about all my calls when I say that.
No, I got the headset on. I got the headset on, so I'm not complaining.
Okay.
Well, here's the good thing is he doesn't do any of my games either because I won't do Rice games, and I'm not going to get D1 games. So Losey can complain about all the other reps, not me.
I'm just a media guy now. I used to be that crazy dad, but now I'm just a media guy. That's it.
When was your son playing?
I had my oldest son graduated in 2018, and then I've got a junior there right now.
2018. Okay. So.
Yep.
So he didn't have a great year at the end.
No. He did not. You know, and you know the funny thing was that it was a deep class, and there was just we didn't have any superstars in that class, just the way that it shook out. And we pushed them to the end and almost pulled it out, but just didn't happen. Oh well.
All right. So enough Rice stuff. A nice grab. You know what, Bob? We have one rule: we try to not swear.
I can't promise.
And I have edited some out. I had several to take out of the Cosgrove episode.
What Cosgrove episode?
We had Paul Cosgrove on this week.
And he was
2
swearing?
episodes ago.
He let a couple slip in. It's okay.
No, I had one. He had one.
There's two. Remember, I do the editing. I had to take 2 of them out.
I only saw one edit.
All right, so let's jump into it.
Now, let's remember, I officiated Paul Cosgrove when he was in high school. Just saying.
I know.
Oh, I know.
I was never swearing at him or Chris Trowan.
Yes.
That was my year, 1988. Cosgrove was my buddy.
I was there.
All right.
Did you play back then?
No, I came from Big Rapids, Michigan. I played basketball and ran track, and I didn't even know what lacrosse was.
Okay. A couple years before that, I didn't know what lacrosse was. In 1983, I didn't know what lacrosse was. My high school still doesn't have lacrosse, where I graduated from.
All right.
Still doesn't have it.
So would you shut up and let me ask some questions, because I've got some really good segues in here now.
Druin's lost control already, Bob. Not our fault.
Yeah.
I know when I'm on the field with Bob. If I'm on the field with Bob and I'm the R, doesn't matter. Not my game.
Well, I'm not circumventing you.
I tease. So, Bob, where did you grow up? And obviously, as one of the few guys that was never a player, who got you involved in officiating and then lacrosse officiating, and did you do any other sports?
So, never did any other sports. Grew up in East Detroit. Now it's called East Point. Grew up in East Detroit. Got introduced into lacrosse in Kalamazoo, Michigan in 1983. So we couldn't play against anybody. Brubaker was there at that time. Brubaker was at Western Michigan during that same time. We didn't figure it out until later, but so got introduced to lacrosse a little bit at Western in the early 80s, mid 80s, graduated, came back to Detroit, and ran into Graham Adams. That's where everything twisted around. Graham Adams talked about lacrosse. I said, I just figured out lacrosse 2 years earlier. Him and Bill Seaman, who you guys have to talk to one of these days, and he should be in the Hall of Fame far before I ever was. But Bill Seaman and Graham Adams had started the Detroit Lacrosse Club, then the Detroit Windsor Lacrosse Club, where the Martinello brothers and these crazy great players are playing. They were playing down on Belle Isle. I used to go down to Belle Isle in the mid-'80s and watch these guys play. Got to know Bill Seaman, got to know Graham Adams. Graham Adams then got thrust into assigning lacrosse. Scheibreck, I think he was the AD at Lance Cruz North. There was a health issue with him or his wife. He couldn't take on the assigning anymore, and he gave it to Graham. Graham was scrambling for officials, had already asked Dana Friend a year before me, but then Paul Safran, Clark Bell came in the same year I did, Paul Safran maybe a year afterwards, and then some of these guys that had played high school ball with him, he had just begged us to just go out and officiate games. So that's when it started. Graham Adams brought me into officiating. I had seen the game, fooled around with the game a little bit in the 80s. Graham Adams said, I need you to officiate. You're never going to be a player. Don't even think about being a player. Just, I need you to officiate. That was my introduction.
And you've never left. You've been a part of the lacrosse community, the lacrosse landscape in Michigan, youth, high school, college, you name it.
Have you met Graham Adams?
I have.
Graham Adams isn't going to let you leave. That's why Graham Adams is in a Hall of Fame 10 years before me. That's why Graham was a player. He was a coach. Unbelievably nuanced personality with the game. His son involved.
Yep.
Graham Adams wasn't going to let me stop officiating. my personality lends itself to officiating. Graham wasn't going to let me stop. So you're absolutely right. Since 1985, certainly 1986. Since 1986, never had a year off other than a few college games earlier this year and then the COVID.
Yeah.
Not this year, but never took a year off, never wanted to take a year off. Marriage, 2 kids, self-employed since before lacrosse, never took a year off and never wanted to. So, but that is a testament to the love of the game, but the start of it is Graham Adams. He put it in there. And then meeting you, Chris, meeting Paul Cosgrove, there's Chris Colin, knowing Chris Colin, how could you stop doing the game if you know Chris Colin's going to be there? Right. So never thought about stopping, never thought about taking a year off, even when kids were being born, mainly because of people like Chris Colin, people like Chris Druin, certainly people like Graham Adams, certainly people like his son, and the great schools that are involved at the high school and collegiate level.
So we kind of got rolling with this, and how'd you get involved? And Chris Colin, just to kind of catch you up, we've just been shooting the stuff for a few minutes. I say this glowingly and respectfully. I don't know if I've had many better mentors in life when it comes to career, family, religion, pop, everything than I have as my lacrosse rabbis. And my lacrosse rabbis are Bob Bowery and Brian Effinger. And those were the 2 guys that really plucked me out when I decided to stop coaching to get me involved and made sure every step of the way I had an ear to bend, I had an ear to talk to, I had, a shoulder to cry on when I was worried I made a bad call. Really have been those mentors for dozens and dozens of officials along the way. So your longevity is a testament to it, but I think also similarly, the people that you've touched, I don't think it's talked about enough because you've mentored a hell of a lot of us.
I officiated Brian Effinger's first game in Michigan. He and I did his first game with him. He played in high school, he played in college. So, but he came here, do the Grosse Pointe segment, got into officiating. He tells me the story. I don't remember, but he was telling me the story. I officiated with Chris Colin, who is a better coach than he was an official. But officiating with Chris Colin was a trip.
Game. I'm quickest games of your life.
I can't even imagine sitting through that.
College game under 2 hours. That was my goal.
That's it. So here's the testament that I have to Chris Colin in officiating versus coaching. We're doing a game. It's a U of M club game. We're out in some field underneath some dorms, whatever it is. And there's a kid who's trying to do everything himself. He's blasting through blasting past his midi, and then he's trying to get out of the double team. Then he gets triple teamed. He gets triple teamed, and he just gets the stuffing knocked out of him.
There you go.
And then the guy looks at Chris. We're on the game. It's old school, 2-man game. He looks at Chris, and he's going, how can you not call something there? I just got the stuffing knocked out of me. And Chris says, very succinctly, I'm not going to reward you for trying to split a triple team. No foul.
Yep.
That is when I said, Chris, you need to get back into coaching. Because That's not what you can do as an official. But that was Chris Cole through and
We all
through.
think it. We just don't say it.
Exactly.
Pass the ball. Pass the ball.
Pass the
the ball,
ball.
son.
Pass the ball. You can't do it all yourself. There's 11 guys out here.
So, Bob, as we're kind of going through the years and the numbers, and I'm just wondering out loud, have you ever sat down and calculated how many games you've done, how many teams you've officiated, even how many state finals you've done?
The state finals are a matter of record. I know I've done more than anybody. So I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. But I've done more than anybody. But back
Graham.
to,
Graham
No,
might have. He might have a few.
I know, but Graham's retired. But
If you count
Graham's
semifinals and finals, maybe you got more.
no finals. I have more. Maybe semifinals. Graham retired 10 years ago, so I've done
Yeah.
8 of the last 10. So I'm not a better official than Graham. I don't know more than Graham. I've just done more finals than Graham. The only person that I know that got to the final game faster than me was Brian Effinger. I think it took me after officiating, X amount of years, I got to a final, and Brian Effinger, and rightfully so, got to that point of being at a final a year faster than I did. But right now, even with Dana, who's albeit the god of officiating in Michigan, I'm not, it's not braggadocious. I've just physically done more finals than
You're not
anybody.
bragging. I asked the question. And Dana's
It's a matter of record.
Yeah. And Dana's only bigger claim to fame than being the god of officiating in Michigan is he gets to be Chris Cullen's neighbor.
Exactly.
That going for you.
That's goodness.
He walks every day at 4:00. You want to see him? He walks right by my house at 4:06.
Is he going to Primo's for a slice? Where's he heading?
I think he just takes a walk every day, and 4:06 he walks right by my house. Clockwork.
Dana and I Dana and I share the same birthday, February 20th, and every year I go and wish him a happy birthday, and he goes, "Oh yeah, you. Yeah. So, Bob, we've had a bunch of guests on this podcast that you need to have your daughter now teach you how to put the app on your iPhone so you can listen to these while you work. We've had guys like Tony Quinn on that
Sure.
referenced you. We had Mike.
Go ahead.
I would say we had Mike. I already forgot how to pronounce his name.
Emery.
No, from Hope.
Rob Dameron.
Hope coach.
From Hope. Yeah, you can't say his last name. That's why you didn't forget it. You just can't say it.
Seychelles.
Seashells. Yeah, that guy.
Sure.
He was making comments about you officiating his first state final when he was at East Grand Rapids.
There you go.
We had Ron Martinello on, and you used to do old, Michigan Windsor games. It's like everybody that we talk to that's an old timer has got a Bob Bowery story.
So hold on. With Mike Seychelles, I mean, he played at Hope. Now I'm lucky enough to do Hope College games. He played at Hope way back when. He stuck with it. He officiated. He coached, at the high school level, but he played at Hope. Now he's back there coaching. That's the right guy. This year, he finally got led into the upper echelon of the Division III, and he was able to play Oberlin. Oberlin didn't even want to play them earlier on because they weren't good enough. And this year, 2020, Mike at Hope beat Oberlin, which is great. So I do remember him. I mean, we're about the same age, so I didn't see him when he was playing in high school, but it's fantastic that guys like Mike have stayed with it. And guys like Rob Dameron have stayed with it. So when I'm looking at the fraternal organization of lacrosse, that's what makes it so exciting. That is the fun part of lacrosse. They come and go. Chris, you were a great player. Rutgers, you did good. Well, great player. Let's put that in perspective. But you stayed with it, and now you're a fantastic coach. You're not an average coach. What you've done is amazing. Where you came from, what you've done, it's amazing. And that's the part that makes all of this kind of worthwhile. So there are Bob Bowery stories, but that's because of my personality. It is about the guys that are out there doing what Chris Colin's doing, what Mike Seychelles is doing. And these guys are the ones, I get to show up, I get paid for every game that I do, and I couldn't do what I do with the passion that I have for it without guys like Mike and Chris being there. I mean, the high school coaches.
John Wilson making a great schedule. We get a good game at Brother Price's. John Wilson was scheduling it.
Hey, listen, we're gonna need some reps coming up. Post June 1st. So everybody, you boys better get ready.
Hey, I want to share this because Bowery's not on Facebook. Can you guys see my screen, or am I having issues again?
No, we can see it.
So
I can see it.
This is a photo I found in a shoebox these last couple weeks. That's Graham in the back. And,
there you go.
This is Rice versus Western Reserve '92. That's me.
This is it. That's you?
That's me. I'd like to think I'm going and getting that ground ball, or I knocked the pass down, but I'm probably running right.
I don't know.
And
this is out at the Orchard Lake St. Mary's cow pasture.
Yes. You can see the lack of grass on the ground.
Yes.
And that gas station.
That gas station and the party store right there.
Moe's, yeah.
Same gas station.
I want to get back to Bob's point with people giving back. 33 right here, that's Mike Cahill, who started and coached in Farmington for 15 years and gave the first stick to guys like Dean Hall that went on to Michigan State and were all Americans there that are now back coaching at Farmington again. So I've got a whole shoebox of this stuff. I got one more for you real quick, Bowery. I found a game with your favorite player of all time, your buddy, Chris Freskin, when I'm in 8th grade playing against you.
I thought this might be coming up.
Yeah. There's a couple of stories from back in the day. Yeah, here it is. That's 16 Cy Facii from Country Day, played at Hopkins.
Right.
That's me in the middle playing for St. Hugo, and 20 is Freskin. You can tell because he's a left-hander wearing hockey arm pads.
And the hockey is what we're talking about, because I was doing a game at Detroit Country Day when he was playing there. Clark Bell was my partner, and there was maybe 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and a fight breaks out. So Chris Druid, you already know this story. I've told you 1,000 times. But a fight breaks out, and I grab 2 kids. Clark Bell, I love Clark Bell, but he's running to his car because a fight's breaking out. 2-man game, old school. I grab the 2 guys that are fighting. I run into the fight. I grab the 2 guys that are fighting. Freskin's one of them. And he turns around with a gloved hand and punches me in the face. He thinks it's another kid from the other team, so he doesn't know that it's an official. So I'm holding onto their jerseys. He smacks me in the face. When he sees he just punched an official, his eyes get big like saucers. I'm bleeding from my face, and I'm telling myself, if I let go, I'm going down. And if I go down, this is going to erupt into 2 bench clearing brawls. I mean, both benches are going to clear. So I hang on somehow to, I'm young and whatever at that time, but I still hang on to him, his eyes, and he's apologizing like, oh my God, I'm sorry. He doesn't know he punched an official. Clark's running for the stands, and then we put everybody back into place, and we finished that last 3 or 4 minutes. Freskin didn't play. he was out. You can't punch.
Needless to say.
You can't punch an official and draw blood and then stay in the game. But that was the Freskin story.
I was gonna say, if you let him stay in the game, Bob, you're pretty lenient. I was gonna say, I didn't think that was gonna happen.
It's just more paperwork if you throw a kid out of a game. And here's the best part about, we talk about this fraternity of lacrosse and all the characters that we know and that we meet. I would have never known that story except for we finish a game somewhere and the officials decide we're going to go have a beverage somewhere, and we start getting to know each other, and you find out where you played and you find out who you got involved with and this and that. So this podcast is just kind of an extension of all those nights we've had hanging out post games and not talking as much about the game or the calls as much about the memories and the friendships. And that story came up because, you know, with, again, I try not to make this the 1987 Brother Rice podcast, as Losi likes to pick on me, but that's where my memories started. So I have a lot of them. And when guys like Bob are involved, it's kind of hard to not tell these stories because they're so darn good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So I'm waiting for Chris Colin to chime in because he always has a couple of handwritten questions he's been holding on to or preparing for these. So I'm dying to hear what your Bob Bowery questions are, Colin. What do you have for us this evening?
Number 1, what is the stickiest situation you've ever been in? And you can include post-game and pre-game, maybe in-between game situations or pre-game situations in a lacrosse game. Stickiest.
And that one he just said was pretty sticky.
So that was bad. So I'm doing some post-high school. Gannon Dudler is playing with Motor City Lacrosse.
This is the one I'm going.
What's it? Okay. So
At Buckner Middle School?
yes, sir. So
Okay,
so there is, so Gannon's playing. It's Motor City, I think it's Motor City Great Lakes. So there's tension, just crazy tension between all the players. Got nothing to do with me, but well, probably some of it to do with me. But I throw a flag and just an unnecessary roughness call on Gannon Dudler. He didn't need to light this guy up. You know, he was one of the greatest players I've ever had the pleasure of watching. Chris, I love you. You were good. I enjoyed it. But Gannon, Morrow was fast. Cosgrove, the stick handling skills, Lynn Clip, all these guys. But Gannon Dudler had this place, whatever, with me. So I have to flag Gannon Dudler, and it's an unnecessary roughness. So that's that kind of odd spot in the book. It's not like it's a cross check. It's not a high hit. It's not from behind. It's not a trip. It's just, I'm calling it unnecessary.
And let me interject. For those that don't know who Gannon Dudler is, Gannon played defensive end at the University of Michigan and was a 6'4", 270-pound all Big Ten wrecking crew football player that also happened to be a dominant lacrosse player.
Yep.
When he played it,
emergency room doctor in Chicago right now.
Yes.
That's exactly right. An emergency room doctor. An emergency room doctor in Chicago. Talked to him a few years ago. He had came and saw Rice Hill game. We talked about old
stuff,
old school stuff. So, but I throw the flag on him, and it's not an easy sell. And so it's Great Lakes Motor City, so everything is tight. So he trots down, picks up my flag, puts it in his stick, and is running it. Now this is Gannon Dudler running it towards me. And I'm standing there, and I'm going, I can't turn, I can't run. I have got to show some level of confidence in my call. So I stand there, and he would squash me like a bug if he wanted to. He runs over to me. He turns over his stick, hands me the flag, and then runs away. Never complained about the call. I am sure that I soiled myself when he was running towards me. But he ran towards me. He was a gentleman is rough to say, but he didn't bitch about the call. He probably knew that it was the right call. He ran over. I thought I was literally going to die on that field that day, and he just handed me the flag and ran back to the box and served his penalty. And that was the level, not just with Gannon, but with that group in the 80s, then the 90s, that was playing the game. They knew the game. They loved the game. If they had to serve a penalty, they served the penalty. If they had to abide by an official's rule, they had to abide by an official's rule, whether or not they liked it. Just like when Chris Colin was saying, you can't split a triple team and expect to get a penalty. Gannon couldn't light up this guy and expect not to get a penalty, and he just went and served it.
Yep.
That was it.
That's it.
20 years later, I'm on the field at Brother Rice, and Gannon Dudler comes up to me. He's an ER doctor in Chicago. He's coming back to see his dad and his mom, and he watches a game, and he comes over to me, and he shakes my hand, and he says, I can't believe you're still doing this. It's nice to see you again. I didn't always like what you did, but that's the fraternal organization that we're all talking about and that we all love.
Yep.
It's funny because from that era, I grew up watching those guys. I grew up watching Morrow, Cosgrove, Chiavello, and Dudler. And like you, I kind of have this thing where top three, Chiavello, Cosgrove, Morrow, but Dudler's right there where I'm not sure to put him there because he didn't play the college ball. But, he's just been a good guy around the game, mentor around the game. And when we had Paul Cosgrove on, he was telling some story about some guy that was turning him inside out. His legs weren't there anymore. And he said, and they should have had cops waiting for me in the parking lot because I abused him when I realized I couldn't keep up with him. And I've listened to the podcast again. The comment he made after that was, and man, he took it like a man.
There you go.
So we've got some of those guys that are still involved in the game as coaches, as players, as officials. But, Colin, is that the exact story you were hoping he went with?
I was at that. I was playing on, I think, Great Lakes.
You were playing for Great Lakes against Motor City.
Yeah, I remember there's that one that you were there. Do you remember the one at Berkshire where we had the Canadian team show up? The little
Oh, Jesus, Border City.
Yeah, that Border City tournament. You and Graham. I don't know
And
how you guys.
Clay Harrell was on that game. Clay Harrell. So there was a guy. Yeah, there was a guy named Butch that played for Border City. Yeah. He was a little off. He was a Canadian, a little off. And so I forget the guy that is a Honda car salesman that played for Hebert. I forget his name.
Wolf.
Maybe no.
There was the Wolf guy who got it was that
no,
it was Wolf guy that started the trouble.
Well, so there was another guy that anyway, there was a guy that played. He ended up playing for Hebert at Northwood. He played somewhere else. And so there's this, we're at Berkshire, it's the Motor City game, and Border City's playing, and Butch ends up begging this guy to hit him. He's saying, please hit me. And whoever this guy was, I forget his name. If I heard it again, I'd remember it. But Butch is in full gear. You couldn't hurt him if you shot him. But so this guy takes off his helmet, and we're screaming, no, don't take off your helmet. And just with a gloved hand, hits Butch in his head. But Butch has got a helmet on, so there's nothing going on. And then all of a sudden, it is two post-college bench clearing brawls. It is off the charts. Somebody ends up being, the ambulance has to come, maybe more than one. But yeah, it ends up being just awful. And all they're telling the Canadian guys are to get off the field and get back to Canada, or you're never going to get back to Canada. So, yeah. Is that the one you're thinking of, Chris?
Yeah, I was in high school, and they asked me to play in that game. It was fun. And yes. I remember all that. Those Canadian guys –
crazy.
Forced all of the high school guys to hang because they knew we were young to hang out in the parking lot before they left and do Canadian things. And again, at that point with that guy, he only had one tooth.
Yeah. Yes,
sir.
One tooth.
Yes, sir. May I have another?
So 17-year-old Chris Colin in the parking lot of Berkshire Middle School and a couple of Canadians in a 2-4. Is that where we're going with this?
That's what we're going with. Yeah.
You were there. I know you were there.
I know I was there. Oh, man. Those were the days. Oh, my goodness.
So,
oh, man. They make my head spin right now thinking about them. But the Martinellos came out of Canada. They were unbelievable, right? There's a kid right now that's, I think, coaching, Wayne, not Wayne Martinello. Anyway, there's a couple of guys that were still from that Border City club team that are still involved, that I see every once in a while at a box lacrosse or possibly what's that?
John Conflitti. He's around. He lives in Rochester.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not saying that's not the name. I just don't remember. I'd have to see these people to remember them. But yeah, that Border City, Detroit, Windsor stuff was crazy. That was crazy lacrosse. It was fun.
Hey, there's the third.
Yep.
This just means I have more editing to do.
Crazy stuff.
Give me your worst scenario that you've ever had, like a 6-on-2. You've got to have one of those weird scenarios where you've had one team down by 3 or 4 guys, or some 6-minute unreleasable when there was some weird rule. Do you have any of those kind of situations that you can remember?
Right. So we didn't always have a stacking rule or not have a stacking rule. So I've had a few times where it's been 6-on-3. That's not awful. What is awful is when the 6-on-3 doesn't score. There is a problem with that. So when you are 2 men up and somebody is screaming diamond, when you are 2 men up, that needs to be an automatic goal. There needs to be one play. We're going to run it. And so the frustrating part is early on in my career, you could have 6-on-2 or 6-on-3, and they couldn't score. And I want to be screaming who they should be passing it to and how the guy should be shooting. But you can't. That's not my job. But it is frustrating to see that six guys on 4 guys or on 3 guys and not being able to score. So they're stacked in the box. You don't like that there's that many guys in the box, but it's far more frustrating. It might not be as juicy as you want in this interview, but the fact that they can't score in that situation is unconscionable. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's fair.
I'll ask my last question. What's the worst thing a coach has ever said to you that you're just like, what the heck did you just say to me? Like what?
And what was your response?
So I'm gonna tip my hat here for a moment and let you guys know that I've been doing this for a long time. And as a matter of record, I have never flagged a coach. Not one time in my entire life. 34, 33 years, whatever it's been, I've never flagged a coach. I have taken the ball away from a coach. That's the worst that I've ever done. Mainly because I usually incite the coach into being angry. It is not that I haven't done something wrong, but usually my personality has conflagrated the entire situation, where the coach then wants to go further. And I know that I'm baiting him, and I know that I have the last word with the flag. So very few people know this, but I will say it now. It can be absolutely, anyway, I have never flagged a coach in my entire life. So the worst thing a coach has ever said to me, other than the stupid, that was a ward call, like, are you kidding me? There's no, there is no warding in lacrosse. So when a coach is screaming a ward call, but when the coach has said to me, the worst thing that I've heard, the guy was a coach at not Grand Valley, maybe Grand Valley, Davenport, coach at Davenport, and he said to me, you don't know the game. And for 25 years of being around, I still didn't flag the guy, but the coach said, "You don't know the game." He was a big guy. I think his name was Bob. I don't remember his last name. He wasn't there very long. Davenport was very good under him. They did a lot of good stuff, but this, I'll refrain from the bad language. This guy said, "You don't know the game." And I'm telling you, I wanted to go after him with both fists. But they didn't even flag the guy.
Restraint.
Okay. So, sorry, Chris. Wasn't that juicy, but
No, you name names. That's good. That's juicy.
that's the
I like
worst. That's the worst thing that the coach ever said to me. You
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know the game.
yeah, that's just going towards. I mean, come on. I mean, 25 years in the game with all you've done, and that kind of goes towards that longevity and the experience that you have, and he doesn't even know it, obviously.
Yeah. And he's
So I've
not
got a
coaching
question.
anymore.
Yeah. So I've got a question, just to change topics. One of the things we've seen in the state of Michigan specifically is just the shortage of referees. Really this, because I do the scheduling, and so it's, we used to do games at the same time at Rice, both on Amberwood and Picasa, and over the last 2 years we just can't do it just because it's pulling two crews at the same time at the same field. If you can kind of give me just a quick kind of synopsis on what what's it going to take to get it back to where it needs to be, and how has it gotten to this place from a shortage standpoint?
The shortage is definitely because of the coaching. The parents, certainly not at Rice, they know the game, but it is definitely because the coaches are screaming at the refs. So I've been around for a long time, and all of the coaches have been screamed at by me. So I get that. I know that I might be the pot calling the kettle black, but I've never flagged one coach in my career because my personality. But there is no doubt that the officials that want to officiate and can officiate won't officiate because of the way they are treated. And I'm okay with the way I'm treated because I'm okay with the way
You've seen it all.
But
You've heard it all.
and I just don't care. But the guys that are really putting the work in and then are getting bleeped on by the coaches, sometimes the fans, sometimes the students, but it always starts with the coaches, and that's where it is. So the money is one thing, but none of us do this for the money. Chris, you don't do this for the money. I don't do this for the money. Mr. Druin, you're not doing this for. We do this because we love the game. That's why we do it.
Right.
So, on a side note, for just a second, COVID-19 has been, I have made money off of COVID-19 because I am working right now and not doing lacrosse games. My family is happy. My wife is happier. We have more money because I'm not running off to Hope College to do a game in the middle of the week. So, but we don't do this for the money. We do this because we love the game. The people that do it for the money, I'm happy for them. I don't mind that they do it for the money, but you're not going to do it for the money if you're getting yelled at. And if you're getting yelled at like the redheaded stepchild and you do know the game, and then the coach is screaming at you like you don't know the game. I was there when I didn't know the game early on, and the coaches were screaming at me, and rightly so. But
I'm going to give a little perspective. I'm going to give a little perspective because I've tried not to yell at officials, and I yell at officials because it works. And I just wish officials, if we want to get a little bit instructional, U.S. lacrosse instructional,
Go for
I
it.
wish officials would take Bob's approach, or gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Goalie Syracuse, amazing.
Matty Palin.
He'll look at you and say, just like Bob looks at me and goes, "We're not going to do this today. This is not going to work. It's not going to work." So I just wish if every official would walk up to a coach and just say, "Listen, man, this isn't. You're going to yell at me. It's not going to work," versus placating or making a call or whatever. That's all you got to do. And coaches, shut up. Just look at the guy and say, "This ain't going to work. It ain't going to work today."
And it's one thing, it's one thing at the Division I level and at the collegiate level and even at the high school level, but I've seen some of these younger, newer officials that are coming in and coaching, 5th and 6th grade, right? And 7th and 8th grade. And it's like, and you got the parents and you've got the coaches, and it's like, and I'll be the first to admit, I've done it a couple of times on this podcast, in my previous, where I was in life before, and I just, I didn't get it. And so I was kind of one of those kind of parent guys in coaching as well.
You sucked as a coach, by the way. You were the worst.
But now I see. Oh, I was not. I went undefeated third and fourth grade. Two
from an
straight years.
official's perspective, way too many Red Bulls.
Forberg and High. But to see it at the youth level, it's just, I can just see it demoralizing those newer officials that are just like, why am I out here doing this?
All right, so I want to chime in and put some perspective on this, and I'm officially putting on my U.S. lacrosse hat.
But before you say that, just before you go there, so we have in order right now, I believe this is correct, in order right now, we have Dana Friend, Bob Bowery, and then a little-known fact, Rusty Hetmanowicz.
Yeah, Rusty.
So I think those are I think we are the three right now in tenure. And Dana might not be doing any games, but I'm certainly not going to circumvent Dana. So if we have Dana, Bob, and then Rusty, and then, Brian's down there somewhere, and, Garbarino, and, all the other guys, they're all down there. But Rusty is the one that I want to just hang on for a second. So to Chris's point, to all of your points, what we had was Rusty had a brother, Jamie, who was a really good player, and then went on to officiate. And then I'm not going to name coaches' names, but Jamie was a great player, was a very good ref, but Jamie couldn't take being yelled at by the coaches. So this is, let's just say 1990. I'm not sure when it is.
Probably
but
97, 98.
Yeah. So,
Maybe 90, yeah.
So he gets yelled at and gets taken out of officiating, not coaching anywhere, not officiating anymore, just because he's yelled at. Rusty, who doesn't care if you yell at him, but Rusty's not that good. But Rusty is who we're with, and I like Rusty. I don't mind doing games with Rusty. Rusty is a, whatever, old soul. So Rusty is still officiating, third in tenure in the state of Michigan, and we lose his better brother, Jamie, because of the way he's treated on the field. That's a misnomer. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
All right, so let me chime in with something, and I'm going to give a little backstory on this. When I converted from a coach to an official, I really thought the fact that I had been a player and a coach meant something. So if I had a coach say something obnoxious to me like, oh, I've been doing this for 7 years, I'd turn around and laugh at him and go, really? I was playing this game before you were born, knock it off. And I was immature as a new official. So I went to a Laredo, and Charlie Obermeyer was one of my clinicians. And I had made a similar comment to some coach at this camp where he was similar to a, you don't know what you're talking about. And I read in my resume, you know, about, well, I've been doing this since 1988. And you can, you know, I was immature. And so Charlie sat me down afterwards, and during his review of me, he said, Chris, nobody cares about you. Really, it's not about you. You think that the game's about you, and until you realize it's not about you, you're not going to be a good official. And I would like to think that since that 7-8 years ago, I've gotten a lot better, and I'm well mature and way well past that. Dana Friend sat me down once and basically said something similar in that your flag can always be the last word, so you don't have to get the last word in. You guys know me. I'm always got a smart aleck comment. I'm always looking for that extra chirp in there because I was as a player. Now as an official, it's not about me. It's not about my opinion. It's not about my experience. It's not about me at all. It's about if the right call or the wrong call was there, we can discuss it. The only thing that I really will say that I still do to coaches is if you ask me a question and I try to answer you and you interrupt me before I finish that answer, I cut you off. I don't let my 9-year-old son talk to me that way. If you ask me a question and before I get the answer out of my mouth, you interrupt me again, you're not looking for an answer, you're looking for an argument, and I'm not going to put up with that. I will say that.
Yeah.
On the flip side, though, I still do youth games. I still do tournaments, and I do these things where I agree that the coaches have gotten out of control in some cases, but we have too many parents that sign their kids up for the game without understanding the game that are ruthless. If you want to call them the Karen, it seems to be the latest way that we're referring to these soccer moms. They don't know the rules. The dads don't know the rules. They scream and they yell and they make it personal. And you're looking at them going, that's not even in the rule book. Like I don't even know how to have a conversation with that parent at a youth game or a JV game, let alone the coach, which has, you know, I always kind of joke about, hey, if your shooter gets lit up, yell at the trail, but don't yell at the lead as he's coming up the field because he shouldn't have seen the shooter. Like, you have to understand the mechanics of who's watching what so you can know who to yell at. I know Chris Colin does a very good job of knowing every single mechanic that the officials have and which official to yell at for who missed what call, or if somebody's making a call from out of position or whatever. But no, I agree with Bob, getting back to John's original comment, that the way that the officials are treated is usually not somebody that knows what they're talking about and they're passionate about they saw it better or you missed a call. It's somebody that doesn't know the rules, doesn't know the game, doesn't know the officials' mechanics, that is screaming and yelling and insulting personally, that has no business opening their mouth at all. And we've lost officials in the last few years, good young officials that have been berated by people.
Absolutely.
I've got an idea.
Yes, please.
You want more officials? I already said to my 5 graduating seniors. I saved it for this, Bob. I didn't talk to you about it yet. I'm springing it on you now.
I'm here.
My 5 seniors, you have to take them out for drinks, and then you'll convince them to be an official. I think that's the best way to get new officials.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bob's recruiting night.
I can handle that. That I can do. That I can do.
So my idea, Chris Druin, from a U.S. lacrosse standpoint, right? We talk about the newer parents not knowing the rules, and I know that a lot of tournaments, you know, that kids go to and play in, that, you know, typically the tournament will make you become a U.S. lacrosse member, or are you a U.S. lacrosse member, whatever it is.
Some of them, to be a sanctioned tournament, you have to have all participants be a U.S. lacrosse member. Yes.
Right. You know, you almost wish you could put something in there where it's you got to sit through an educational video for 15 minutes on the rules, or go through and, you know, or something along those lines, or at least offer something for newer parents, maybe a condensed version of the, you know, the basics of the rules for them to learn. You know, we're trying to, you know, turn this into kind of a resource center for the game. And I think that would be neat, kind of, lacrosse for, I don't want to use the word dummies, but, lacrosse for new parents or whatever it may be.
John, I want to address that specifically. We've done a little bit of that in a grassroots way. The tournaments out in Oxford every year, he has both Booze Bash and Lax Bash. I always make a point to say to Brian, give me whatever games you want, wherever you need me, I'll take them. Bill Schmidt's the assigner. They know I'm going to be around all day. I live 10 minutes from there, like just when you need me, whatever. And I always make a point that if it's coaches I know that, their travel teams or whatever, again, I don't need to be at another game where it's Brubaker's crew versus Trenton Gaffner's crew. I know all their coaches. I know all their guys. I know, I can have whoever the other ref is take the coach's side, and I say, I'll go take the parent side. Because I'll walk up to them before the opening face-off and say, my name is Chris. If you have questions, you have every right to ask me during breaks in action between whistles. Chris, what's going on? I don't do this at a high school championship game, the high school A division championship game. I do this at U14, U12, U10. And a lot of times I build up enough rapport where I'm teasing people in those lower levels to have them, the questions I normally get, what's that thing on your belt you keep clicking? Oh, my timer? Yeah, they got 20 seconds out, they got 10 seconds. Why do you pump your arm? Oh, the goalie has 4 seconds to get it out. I try to build that rapport so that they're comfortable asking questions. If there's a little brother or a big brother or big sister on the sideline and I'm doing a game, I'll throw them a flag and be like, you want to come out here and run around and see how it goes? Like, I really try to make an effort to get those parents to understand you can ask questions, and I think it gives me a little bit of a force field where they're not going to scream and yell, this effing guy, if they know it's Chris and his name is Chris and he's willing to help out. So I try to do that. And then we've also had opportunities where between games, Kaminskis' wife, Jess, she works for the parade company. She's always doing marketing and PR and social and everything. We had a whiteboard, and I was going to the whiteboard explaining, and she was videotaping it, and they put it on the Twitter channel. Yeah. How we do offsides. And I specifically said about counting forward or whose job it is to do the count. So if you're screaming he's offsides, and there's a ref sitting on the cone, he's counting it as the single. You can calm down because we've got somebody there that's doing the count as you're screaming. And if he counts right and moves on, then you got to shut up and move on. He did his count. He did his job. Don't count. There's only 2 defensemen back. See if there's a guy in the cone and he knows what he's doing. Count forward. Just because they have only 2 defensemen back, it could be their sub. Like, I tried to go through that. I tried to go through some of that stuff. We have not done a formal lacrosse for new parents rules. And I know we can do this on the girls' side too, because I'm learning this, and I want to know when I watch a college game, why the hell do the girls throw their sticks down after every goal? Like, there's some common sense stuff that we just take for granted and assume releasable versus non-releasable. The nomenclature and technology in terms that we've come up with, or the rules that we've advanced through, that we probably as USL Michigan can and should do a better job of that. But at the same time, some of it still just gets back to common sense and respect and common decency and the way that they treat people. And I'm not saying that to scare off new officials, and I'm not saying that to be a victim because I've gotten screamed at before. But if you ask the question, why is there an official shortage? It's more the treatment of the officials than it is the game check, and it's more the game check than the lack of willingness to get involved. My 2 cents.
The other side of it, a lot of these summer tournaments, I don't think we're going to have parents up on the sideline. Tournaments are going to look a lot different with all this COVID-19 stuff. So
it'd be a lot better, a lot smoother.
There might be a great opportunity for officials and parents and new officials and everything to kind of learn. If they're going to have anything this summer, it'd be a great summer to get into officiating because there might not be any parents on the sidelines.
Man,
exactly.
I never thought of that, Chris. That's a great idea.
It's some of the larger tournament companies that I attend, and they're coming up with some pretty strict guidelines. And I think the officiating's really a lot of fun. You can stay in shape and be a part of a game, and I love doing it. When I was younger, I would still like to do it if I could. Because I don't mind getting yelled at either. But I think this would be a great opportunity in the short run once we start playing for people to get into it, because it's going to look a lot different. It's going to look a lot different.
I just want to share this real quick. Kaminskis's Lacrosse tweeted this out earlier. Brubaker from all the 313 GP Select teams, Michael Kaminskis and Brian Kaminskis from the Lax Bash events and the Cash Cows, Chris Marucci from Triumph, Trenton Gaffner from all the coalition stuff, and Ed, I don't know Ed Alzaplita. So they're getting calls together like this too, trying to figure out how they are going to get back to normal once there is a normal. Okay, so I guess Ed's from Black Swamp. So it was Coalition, Triumph, 313, Black Swamp, and Cash Cows. I got a feeling they're doing something similar. I know for sure Kaminska said that they're looking at discussing free streaming services for all this stuff, so that if the parents can't be there or the recruiters can't be there, they can still have a way for the people to watch these games without crowds or if you can only have 50 people at a location.
I'm going.
Well, yeah, you're going. Okay,
I'll
and
be
to kind of wrap this back, I don't want to be
broadcasting.
the turd in the punch bowl that makes it sound like every official is looking for an exit strategy and we hate doing games. We love doing games.
No.
We love helping the kids. We love being a part of it. We love the money. It's how I take my family on vacations all summer as my disposable income from my reffing. But if we want to get back to how we get more people, what's that?
Yeah. Right. That was the second part of the question. So, I mean, really, I knew what the answer was, right? It was more for the viewers out there just so we can reiterate exactly what it is and then get to the other side of that so that people understand that if we don't have officials, it's not going to be games, right? I mean, the shortage is real.
I do have to give credit. Guys like Bill Schmidt that are assigners have been working with the schedulers to say, work with me. And he has done a great job communicating to say, if you can put your games on the east side on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I can put the refs on the west side on Mondays and Wednesdays. If you have two fields, Brother Rice, or you have two fields, Clarkston Youth, don't give me two games at the exact same time on two fields, because now I'm down four officials instead of two. There's things that Mishloa and Bill's our buddy, but he has a heck of a time trying to get all this assigning done. And some days it's the lack of officials because there's a trickle down. The D1 guys get assigned, and then the D2 guys get assigned, and then the D3 games are assigned, then the NAIA, then the MCLA, and then whoever's left, we fill in with the MHSAA, and whoever's left after that, we fill in with youth. Ideally, if a community, and I'll look at you, John Losi, I'll pick on you, like Brother Rice, that has all these dads that know the game that their kids have now, stopped playing in their empty nesters, they should come out and they should get involved. Do some youth games. The number of Rice grads that have finished, their playing careers that are not coaching in the Rice system, have them pick up a whistle and come on out and ref, because Jim Hebden did that after Andy and Jamie stopped playing.
There you go.
I did that after I stopped playing. I think we're the only two officials with Rice ties.
Yeah.
And Rice has been along for a long darn time. And I don't think we've got a single official out of Cranbrook or Country Day. We got a couple out of De La Salle and Ferrari and some of those guys. Even the gross pointers, we've gotten the McCools and the Effingers and the Garbarinos. De La Salle, we like I mentioned, we had Ferrari. And, if these older programs want to complain about we don't have enough officials, we need their help recruiting as well, going to their guys that are back in town saying, hey, we have youth games every other Saturday. If we can get a couple officials, Bill Schmidt will assign you. You'll probably never leave this zip code, and there's games for you.
So hold on.
Yeah, and it wasn't even complaining. I don't think the schools are complaining. I mean, I'm doing it to just it needs to get out there, and it's just communicating that piece, because I know it from the scheduling side of when I get a late minute game, if I'm scheduled for Brother Rice's varsity B that some team wants to come into town, and I'm like, I don't know if we can. I got to see if we got refs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
go ahead, Bob.
Before the MHSAA was involved, so this is the dark ages of lacrosse. Before the MHSAA was involved, only Scheidrak and no other AD wanted to be involved in lacrosse because it was too rough. But the coaches and the officials ran the whole thing. And what we used to do is we were trying to figure out who wanted to come in and have a team. And what we used to do through Graham Adams was if you wanted a team to be playing next year, you had to give us 3 guys that would officiate. And so they didn't always matriculate, they didn't always work out, but 3 guys would come into the system, they would officiate some games, and then that team could move forward into a varsity program. You know, it wasn't going to work with the MHSAA. This is pre-MHSAA, but I'm telling you, it worked. We had coverage of games. These guys wanted to come in. They, you know, some of them coached, some of them officiated, but if you wanted a new program to come into the fold, you had to give officials. That just made sense. It just made sense for the whole thing. So, and it worked.
Yeah.
All right, we're at an hour. I got 2 things. Bob, I don't know how after 5 weeks of no barber, your hair looks so perfect. I don't know how you did it, but perfect.
Thanks, Chris.
Statement 1, but number 2 is, what is your favorite place to go to after you officiate a game? Favorite establishment, restaurant, bar, whatever. What's your favorite place? I know the answer, but what?
Well, hold on. There's regions. If it's after a college game and it's maybe the MCLA championships, it's Dan's in Saline. If it's in Ann Arbor, it would be on Plymouth Road.
Ashley?
No. Ashley's is fun, but okay. So on the east side, it would be Luigi's, way back up Jefferson after Lance Cruz game. Dick O'Dow's was definitely a favorite with being in the Birmingham. Brother Ice, Birmingham C Home, Detroit Country Day. We would do a lot of Dick O'Dow's versus Matt Brady's. There was a lot of give and take between those two. And then on the west side, if we were going to a Catholic Central game or something out there, it would be Stingers.
Stingers.
That's what you were waiting for. You were waiting for Stingers. So I kind of had to pull it all around. But there we go.
All right. Do I have time to throw a few questions in?
Yeah.
So
You got the ticker.
we have we watched the game evolve. We watched the rules evolve.
Yes.
And we used to have things like 6 long sticks. We used to have things like no shoulder pads, no arm pads. We used to have releasable penalties where it meant if you crossed into the other team's restraining line, your guy got to come running out of the box.
Best rule ever.
So I think I already answered our question. If you could bring back one rule that was changed.
Jump dive.
One rule.
Jump dive. Jump dive. Jump dive, but you cannot hit the goalie. That's the rule that needs to be changed. It's too flippin' exciting. I said flippin'. Think
You said
about
flippin'.
that.
You get it. Guards
I said,
up. I like it.
so the jump dive rule cannot touch the goalie, but mainly the goalie cannot initiate the contact, and that's our job. Jump dive rule should be abolished because it is way too exciting. You end up in the crease, you touch the goalie, before the ball's in the back of the net, you know what? No goal. Anything less than that, it's too exciting. Secondly, it's the one you're talking about, Chris, is you're on defense. You are man down. You have stripped the ball. You have gained entrance into the attack area with the ball, and you've got a guy in the penalty box. Release him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was such an exciting part of the play. I mean, that is
rewarded you for great defense.
There you go. And that's what we want. That's me.
Okay.
And wording.
I like the jump dodge. I like the jump dodge.
Yeah, no jump dive. No jump. You touch the goalie, there needs to be a severe penalty. If the goalie initiates a contact, then we got to figure something else out. But you can't be in the back of you can't be in the crease before the ball's in the back of the net. But the jump dive thing is just too exciting.
Okay, so that was a two-part question. You nailed it both all at once. Because again, as an old defenseman, I used to love killing penalties and watching Jason Snooks sprint across midfield, cross the restraining line, and here comes Mike Cahill or somebody barreling out of
There we go. We would pump our arms, and they would come out of the box. That was exciting.
I think most people don't understand that releasable versus non-releasable had more to do with that play than the actual time expiring or after the goal. You mentioned Bill Seaman by name as someone that we need to get on here and need to get to the Hall of Fame. As a member of the Hall of Fame, we are always looking for input on who else should be in the Hall of Fame. Who else should be in the – and again, just because you're saying this does not mean they will be nominated nor selected, but who else should we get on the podcast for an interview, and who else is the in your mind, the glaring, unexcusable error of not being in?
Bill Seaman. So, Pete Lindcliffe. So, the Kinney brothers, all three of them, Chris, you can attest to it, they were unbelievable players. So, I forget the oldest one, but Jake was, what's that?
Jake's the oldest.
What are the other two?
Nate and Eric.
So, I'll tell you what.
Awesome. I think Nate would be so entertaining on this podcast.
So, you know what? All three of these guys, whether you like them personally or not, and I've had my fallings out with all of them, but I'm telling you, these guys were unbelievable. And so the Kinneys, I think Seaman, certainly should be there. And then I'd have to think about Rob Dameron should. I called Rob when you guys said, hey, look, Bob, we want you in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And so I refused it the first time. I said, you guys are wrong. Then they came back to me. Forget all of that. Rob Dameron reached out to me when he had seen that I was getting inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I have the text. I saved it. I texted Rob Dameron and said, you should be here before me. So he was, and he's still in the game.
Yeah.
So,
Throw it up.
I mean, who doesn't like Bob Woodruff? He's a national treasure. Okay, good. But he was here for a couple of years in Michigan. He played, okay, Colgate, came back, U of M, okay. But not that I take anything away from Bob Woodruff, but I will tell you, Rob Dameron has been here all the way through. He was a great player, a whiny player. I officiated him in high school and after high school. But Rob Dameron should be in there. Pete Lindcliffe should be in there. What's that?
You'd be great on the podcast. We wouldn't have to say anything.
You wouldn't have to say anything. Exactly. So
I can tell you my story about driving up north to Cherry Bomb with Rob Dameron sometime. It's a good one.
I drove 9 hours in the car with him. I said one word.
Rob, we love you. Okay, so I will put them on the short list of people on here. Wrapping up, we talked about some of the greats. Who are, just give me a couple names of guys that you just love to officiate the games because of the way they played. And we already talked about Dudler and Morrison.
So what I would love to do is be able to go back. They talk about Jordan and James, LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Which one would be better? I would like to see something where we have Morrow against Petrovic. It would be, I mean, Morrow was so fast and he was a game changer. It was unbelievable to watch that guy.
Yeah.
I loved the people he played with. It was, and I still see him now with the Cosgrove and the, whatever, Dudler and all these guys. But Morrow was a game changer. Petrovic was a game changer. Seeing him play the game was wonderful. And to be able to then see what it would be with a game with with David Morrow and with Petrovic, that would be fun. Sergio versus Dave would be fun, the way we talk about Jordan versus LeBron James. So
Good.
those guys, they were game changers. They didn't always have the heart that some of the other guys did, but those two guys were unbelievable. Dana and I are the only two that saw Morrow play the game that are still around, that saw Morrow play the game. And it was unbelievable what he could do with the game. And it was fun years later to see Sergio play the game and to see what he could do with that game, because they were games. The Kinney brothers, all three of them, were unbelievable. I mean, there's 24 guys that were fantastic on the field, that were exciting, but whether it's politically correct or not, Morrow and Petrovic were damn.
So our last episode with Paul Cosgrove on, he and I were talking about the best of Rice, and I actually put together an all-time Rice team, and I emailed it to him. And
were you on the all-time Rice team?
me personally?
You personally?
No.
Okay. Just wondered.
Dude, if I'm trying to decide between Chavillo, Cosgrove, Morrow, and Dudler, Druin does not come in that conversation at all. But thank you for thinking I'd think that much of myself.
Just wondering. Okay.
So I sent it to him, and I'm going to send it to you just so that you can make fun of me. But maybe that's a round table down the road as we get the Cosgroves and Bowerys and Dana Friends and Clark Bells and Graham Adams around a table to discuss the greatest of an era, the greatest of an all time, just because it's never been done. A guy like Jamal Robertson would be perfect for that conversation. He's got more history about guys from Cranbrook and Country Day.
Yes.
Okay. Final question. Who does the best Bob Bowery impersonation?
Liver.
He does.
Sorry.
Write that one down.
He told me they used to sit up in the stands with the no that I was so famous for so many years. So Liver used to tell me they would sit up in the stands, maybe with a snuggled cocktail, into the stands to see home, and they would do a drinking game with me and the no. When I would do the no, they would all have to do shots. So Rick Jackson wasn't bad with the Bob Bowery impersonation, but the first one that come to my mind was Livingston.
It's getting to the point that I think we're doing impressions of the impressions. You've become Jack Nicholson, where there's impressions based on the stereotype of the impression, but it always starts with no.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Summer Jackson.
For kids, I do it in practice. More than I'm up there, I do it. Dwayne does it too.
Dwayne does it. Exactly.
I will admit this. There have been games that I've done with other coaches that I've grown up in the game with and that I'm good friends with, where I will say, okay, pregame something will come up and I'll make a joke about, can you believe we used to play together or coach together? I'm like, Jesus, Bob Bowery, used to do our games. And I'll say to them, like, I'm going to do the first half as if I was Bob Bowery. And so they'll go like, Druid, he wasn't offside. No. It's our inside joke. It's what we do.
Matt Demarest was pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Demo's pretty good.
Demo was pretty good. I got to tell you, Demo, he used to stuff about it.
I got to edit so much on this one.
4.
All right.
It was
You
4.
better start.
4.
It's going to
The
take you
record
a while.
was 3. The record was 2. I don't know. I'll have to edit this out. I don't have the guest lineup for next week, but we're going to try to get Summer back because that file corrupted. We're going to try to get Izzy back because that one I screwed up on. We're, like I said, if you see something here, mention in the comments who else we need to get on. I know that there's a list of people. Andrew Cote was texting me today, said, I heard you mention me on the podcast. When am I going to be on there? So there's so many good people and good stories out there that we're going to get to. We've got to get to. If we haven't gotten to you yet, forgive us. We're coming. We're getting there. But while we're all quarantined, Bob, thank you so much for taking an hour and a half out of your life and sitting down and talking lacrosse with us.
Yes, sir.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.
I at the end of every one of these, if we have a guest, we say, go follow Mackenzie Lawler at Coach Mac GVSU on Twitter, or we say go follow their Facebook. Bob has no...
Can't follow me. Can't follow. You know what you do?
Follow
Chris Colin.
Go follow Bob to stay. Go follow Bob to stay here.
Follow Chris Colin. Because
me and I'll
everything
Bob.
that I want to do with lacrosse is enveloped in Chris Colin.
I'm surprised there's not Bob Bowery parody accounts out there. All right. But on a serious note, everyone, go join US Lacrosse, uslacrosse.org. We need more members. We're going to keep this thing rolling. Follow us on Facebook, US Lacrosse Michigan. Follow us on Twitter, USL_Michigan. At Lax Losi, at Chris Colin, at Chris Druin. The legendary Bob, my friend, my mentor, my buddy. So good catching up with you.
Love all three of you. Well, all four of you. Sorry. So, thanks, guys. I appreciate this. This is fun. This is what we're supposed to be doing. To bring guys in, to have guys come through. This is good. This is good for the sport. Good for all of us.
Agreed. See ya.